Throughout history, humanity has been obsessed with a single primal question. Who is the most dangerous person on the planet? From the gladiators bleeding into the Roman sand to the samurai dueling at dawn, we have always needed to know who stands tall when you strip away the weapons, the armor, and the armies. Mixed martial arts is the final answer to that question. It is not just a sport, it is the rawest form of human expression. Men who took violence and turned it into a symphony. I still remember that episode of Friends, the one where Monica's boyfriend, Pete Becker, decided he wanted to become the ultimate fighting champion. Back then, it was played for laughs. It seemed like insanity, a regular guy stepping into a cage to get mauled. But watching that, seeing the contrast between a normal man and a combat machine, that was the moment I actually started to get interested. There's been so many great fighters, but let's face it, only one can be the GOAT. All right, let's go down to business. If we're talking about the greatest, we have to start at the genesis. You cannot write the history of combat without the name Royce Gracie. In 1993, the world thought fighting was about who could punch the hardest or who looked the scariest. Then walked in this skinny Brazilian in a white gi, looking more like a librarian than a killer. He didn't look intimidating, but he possessed a secret weapon the world wasn't ready for: Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Royce walked through UFC 1, 2, and 4, choking out boxers, wrestlers, and giants who outweighed him by 50 pounds. He proved that technique conquers size. He is the reason we are all here today. He didn't just win fights, he changed the genetic code of martial arts forever.
But as the sport evolved, we moved from specialists to hybrids. And out of the cold isolation of Russia emerged a man who felt less like an athlete and more like a force of nature: Fedor Emelianenko, the last emperor. For a decade, he was an unsolvable riddle. He didn't fight in a cage, he fought in the white ring of pride in Japan, where soccer kicks were legal and the rounds were 10 minutes long. Fedor had the hands of a heavyweight boxer and the hips of a judo master. He went 28 fights undefeated in the most dangerous division in the world. He had this stoic, emotionless face. He looked like he was waiting for a bus, moments before he would absolutely destroy a legend. He was the boogeyman that everyone feared, and for a long time, he was the undisputed king. Then, the sport shifted again, this time towards precision. We entered the Matrix with Anderson, the Spider Silva. If Fedor was a hammer, Anderson was a sniper rifle. We had never seen striking like this before. He didn't just beat opponents, he embarrassed them. He made world-class fighters look like they were moving in slow motion. The front kick to Vitor Belfort's face, the way he lowered his hands and dodged Forrest Griffin's punches like he could see the future, it was pure magic. Anderson held the middleweight title for 2,457 days. He brought an artistic flair to violence that made you question if what you were watching was even real. However, the end of Silva's career was a heartbreaking reality check. Disappointing decline is the one stain that likely removes him from holding the ultimate prize as the undisputed GOAT.
While Silva was dancing, a Canadian was busy perfecting the science of domination: Georges St-Pierre. GSP wasn't just a fighter, he was the ultimate athlete. He took the blueprint of MMA and perfected every single area. He could out-wrestle the wrestlers and outstrike the strikers. He was a machine of efficiency. GSP didn't have a weakness. If you had a hole in your game, he would find it, exploit it, and drown you in it. He avenged his only 2 losses, cleaned out the welterweight division, retired, and then came back 4 years later to win the middleweight belt. That is a legacy of perfection that is hard to argue against. Speaking of perfection, and perhaps the most controversial name on this list, Jon Bones Jones. If we are looking strictly at talent, strictly at what happens inside the cage, Jon might just be the number 1. He became the youngest champion in UFC history at 23 years old. He didn't just beat the old guard, he annihilated them. Shogun, Machida, Rampage, Belfort. He walked through a row of Hall of Famers like they were nothing. Jones is cruel in the octagon. He uses his elbows like blades and his reach to suffocate you. Despite the chaos outside the cage, you can find more information in my Villains video. Inside of it, he has never truly been defeated. He is the villain of the story, but he might also be the most talented fighter God ever created.
Let's get back to the list because we cannot forget the man who operated at a speed no one could match, Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson. People overlook the flyweights, and that is a crime. DJ is technically the most proficient fighter to ever live. His transition from striking to wrestling was seamless. He holds the record for consecutive title defenses. The moment he suplexed Ray Borg and caught him in an armbar midair before they even hit the ground remains the greatest submission in the history of the sport. That wasn't fighting, that was video game physics in real life. Now, we did see the limits of physics when he stepped up to fight Dominic Cruz. That bout was a harsh reminder that size actually matters in this game, as the bigger Cruz was able to control him. But that loss doesn't tarnish the legacy, it just clarified it. At his natural weight, he is untouchable. He might not be the GOAT, but he is, without a shadow of a doubt, the undisputed flyweight GOAT. And then the eagle landed. Khabib Nurmagomedov. We have seen strikers, we have seen wrestlers, but we have never seen a mauler like Khabib. 29-0, never bled, never knocked down, he barely even lost a round. His grudge match against Conor McGregor stands as the biggest fight in the history of the sport, a global spectacle where he proved his dominance under the brightest lights imaginable. He told his opponents exactly what he was going to do. I'm going to take you down and you cannot stop me. And then he did it. He drowned Conor, he choked out Dustin Poirier, he put Justin Gaethje to sleep. He looked like the perfect fighter, the inevitable GOAT. But he retired at the absolute peak of his powers, and that is the problem. To sit on the throne of the greatest of all time, longevity is the final test. By walking away so early, leaving us wondering what if, he essentially removed himself from the list. He didn't play the game, he broke it, but he left the table before the game was truly finished.
Now we have to address the elephant in the room, the notorious Conor McGregor. Let's be honest, if we are looking at pure consistency, resume, and title defenses, he is not the GOAT. He never defended a belt, and the back half of his career has been marred by inactivity and losses. However, if we are changing the criteria to who impacted the game the most, who took a niche blood sport and dragged it into the global mainstream, Conor stands alone at the top. The rise of Mystic Mac was cinematic. He predicted the rounds, he called his shots, and that night in Madison Square Garden, where he became the first simultaneous double champion, was a masterpiece of timing and precision. He brought millions of eyes to the octagon and changed the pay structure for everyone who came after him. The story doesn't end with the retired legends. The game is faster now, and the current era is producing monsters that are standing on the shoulders of these giants. Look at Alexander Volkanovski, a man who used to weigh over 200 pounds playing rugby, cut down to featherweight and became an unshakable object. His fight IQ is off the charts.
Alex Poatan Pereira. He speed ran the UFC, conquering 2 divisions in record time while defeating 5 former champions. Pereira isn't just winning, he is saving events and delivering historic knockouts on short notice. If he captures a 3rd belt at heavyweight, the GOAT debate might end with him.
And now we look to the present, where a trio of modern killers is actively sprinting towards GOAT status.
Islam Makhachev, double champ. He took the blueprint Khabib left behind and upgraded the striking. Islam is showcasing that Sambo-style dominance, but with head kicks that can put anyone out. He is proving that the Dagestani reign wasn't a phase, it's an era. After systematically cleaning out the lightweight division, he moved up to welterweight and dismantled his opponent as if it were nothing. And we can't ignore the chaos that is Khamzat Chimaev. He burst onto the scene like a cannonball. Fighting twice in 10 days, in 2 different weight classes? That is unheard of. He has that old school Mike Tyson aura, where the fight starts before the bell rings. He wants to smash everyone.
Everybody, I come here for everybody, kill everybody. I'm the champ, I'm the king, kill everyone.
dominance in the early rounds is something we haven't seen since the early days of the sport. Finally, another double champ. Look at the new blood, Ilia Topuria. The confidence on this man is bulletproof. He talks like a champion and he fights like an assassin. He represents the new generation of MMA, complete fighters who have been training everything since day one. His boxing is crisp, his grappling is elite, and his mindset is unshakable. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to take heads, and he does it. Those three aren't the GOAT yet, but who knows? In a few years, that might change.
All right, before we get to the final verdict, if you're enjoying the video, please smash that like button and subscribe. It really helps me out. Now, if I didn't mention your personal GOAT on this list, feel free to hit dislike. Just kidding. Don't you dare. Because doing
that's fucking illegal.
At the end of the day, when the dust settles and the noise fades, my two men left standing at the summit of this sport, Georges St-Pierre and Jon Bones Jones. They are the outliers, the aliens. Their resumes are not just impressive, they are historical documents of domination. But we have to make a choice. Jon Jones might possess the greatest fighting instinct we have ever seen. He is a combat prodigy, a man who feels no fear and has never truly been bested in a fight. But we cannot ignore the shadow, the suspensions, the positive tests. You can argue about the amount, you can talk about picograms, but in a sport where the objective is to inflict physical damage on another human being, the shadow of performance-enhancing drugs is a darkness that you simply cannot wash away. It places an asterisk next to the art. And that is why the scale tips. It tips towards the man who did it the right way. The man who avenged every single loss he ever suffered. The man who mastered every discipline, cleaned out a division, returned to capture a second belt, and never once gave us a reason to doubt the purity of his greatness. Excellence without the asterisk. Dominance without the doubt. If we are talking about the true embodiment of a mixed martial artist, the greatest of all time is Georges St-Pierre. And if you want to know more about Jon Jones, do not miss the villain video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.